Hello, it's Charles Fockaert, September 2nd, 2018. Welcome, everyone. It sure is good to be alive. May not be the best circumstances, conditions, etc., etc. Life doesn't always turn out the way you think it's going to, does it, folks? But I'm up here in the Rocky Mountains, and this is my last couple days here. I'll be heading south, getting a little nippy up here. But anyway, it's been a good 2 months, and I'm headed south, like I said, probably tomorrow. But before I left and got on the road again, it's hard to do videos on the road. But don't miss my series on the road with Charles Fockaert. And I want to thank those of you who support this channel. I was able to buy a 4 terabyte external drive, and thank goodness I transferred all of those videos to that 4 terabyte hard drive. So this video, after that long introduction, this video is on the value of silver 2,000 years ago, circa 2,000 years ago, and the value of silver today in the United States. And also, I'm going to tie it into what's going on there in Venezuela. Venezuela used to be the richest country in South America. They got some of the largest, if not the largest, deposits of oil in the world. Their oil is more expensive to refine. It's more of a black oil, I understand, and it's not as clean or pure as other oils in other parts of the world. But they have some of the largest deposits, if not the largest deposit of oil in the world, and yet they're going through hyperinflation. And some are saying it's going to reach 1,000,000%. Their Bolivar is being devalued by the minute. So the reason I'm doing this is I think, and I have videos, you can go watch them, on the collapse of the dollar here in the United States and around the world. So I wanted to kind of do a little update on that as to why, to support my contention that we're going to have a collapse here in the United States. And we're going to talk about the silver, the value, the cost, the price of silver 2,000 years ago, and the price of silver today. So let's get to it, shall we? And a good place to start is in the Word of God. So we're going to start here in Matthew chapter 20. Laborers in the vineyard. Matthew 20 verse 1. For the kingdom of heaven is like unto a man that is a householder, which went out early in the morning to hire laborers into his vineyard. And when he had agreed with the laborers for a penny a day, he sent them into his vineyard. And I'm not going to read all the rest of this, but you can come back and read this. I've read it many, many times. And with my background in economics, these kind of parables, these kind of passages in the Word of God are of interest to me. But the point I want to make here is a penny a day. And these were common laborers to work in the vineyard, and he was going to pay them a penny a day. In fact, I'll scroll down here so it'll all be on the video here. So the King James translates the word denarius in the original Greek here as penny. So this is the same word. And the silver content of the denarius under the Roman Empire during Nero's time was 50 grains, 3.24 grams, or 1/10 of a troy ounce. And as we read there in Matthew, 1 denarius, or 1 penny, was the daily wage for an unskilled worker and a common soldier. So circa 2,000 years ago, 1/10 of a troy ounce equaled 1 day's wages for an unskilled worker. Today, 2018, the federal minimum hourly wage is about $10. Federal Reserve notes. And you can put the triple parentheses around the Federal Reserve notes. And we all know, or we should know, that the Federal Reserve is neither federal or reserve, controlled by the Esau Edomites. So at McDonald's, though, the employees at McDonald's, you probably heard, are demanding a living wage of 15 Federal Reserve notes per hour. And I'm going to get back to this in a minute, okay? We're going to come back here after I go through some other some other events that are happening down there in Venezuela. So let's go have a look at that, shall we? As we read here on the screen, and I'll look this up and which link this is, which video this is. I want to give the young man credit, but Venezuela just devalued the Bolivar by 95%. And I can't really say it any better than this fellow, so let's just go ahead and have a watch at this, what this young man has to say about what's going on down there in Venezuela, shall we?
They did another 95% devaluation of the currency, making that currency absolutely worthless. And just to point out this, it takes 14.6 million bolivars. Now, the bolivar at one point, I think, was like 7 bolivars to $1. So, I mean, this is an insane amount of money that is going paper, that's going after real tangible goods. This shows in plain pictures that your money in the banks, and we are no different than people think, oh, we're the United States, all this other stuff. We're actually worse. We're a bigger financial mess, but because we're the world's reserve currency and everybody's revolved around this, that we think that we're insulated from this. No, all these crises are going to go from the emerging markets to the developed markets, and we saw the contagion effect that happened in 2008, which was an institutional contagion effect. Now we're dealing with sovereign nations, and Venezuela is just a future of what we're going to see here.
So you saw it there, that big tall stack, what was it, 14 million bolivars to buy one chicken, and they put the value at the chicken at $2.25, he said. So, or 1/4 ounce of silver. So that's about 1/10 of an ounce. I don't know. I don't know if you could make, how many of these it takes to make one. This is 1 troy ounce here. I don't know how many of these it takes to make one of these, but let's just say that you could buy that chicken for 1/4 ounce of silver if you had it. And we're going to talk about this a little bit more in detail, but I want to continue on with this young man's video because he's got a chart there that I want you to look at. So let's go have a look at that, shall we? But before we do that, I wanted to point out that it's the value, the cost, the worth of the chicken hasn't gone up. My guess is you could go to Venezuela a few years ago and buy that chicken for $2.25 in American money. I don't know what that would be. It's 7 bolivars for $1 US dollar just a few years ago. And now you saw how many of the Venezuelan money, currency, fiat currency, and that's important. They just print it out of thin air like we do here in the States. Took all that stack to buy that chicken. Point is, it's not the value of the chicken hasn't gone up, but it's the value of the currency, the fiat currency, which has gone down. So now it takes more currency to buy the same item that you could have bought a few years ago, and that's important, and we'll get into that here in a minute.
Living in 1962, when the United States was essentially on a silver standard, where we had 90% silver in our coinage up until 1965, where they took it out. But these prices are very similar to what Venezuela is going in dollar terms right now. So we're looking at 5 million bolivars for 2 pounds of tomatoes, or about 76 cents. Toilet paper, a roll of toilet paper costs 2.6 million bolivars, or 40 cents. Carrots, 3 million bolivars for 46 cents. A bar of soap, 3.5 million bolivars, or 53 cents. Diapers, 8 million bolivars, or $1.22. and a kilogram of meat was 9.5 million bolivars, or $1.45. So that's 2.2 pounds of meat. And back in 1962 in the United States, it took 40 cents per pound of ground beef. So, I mean, there's a reality involved with silver and, real goods like, eggs and bacon and, real things that we use. And that the valuations of those very rarely change. It's the devaluation of these currencies, the debt spending, the inflation that these bankers are using to constantly rig the game, and it keeps us on this treadmill to go out and earn more money, to go pay more taxes, to go higher inflation. It's a dead end game. It's a rigged game. And the only way out is to recognize that you're playing a rigged game and get out of it. Get into physical silver, because silver is what protects you, your purchasing power. If a Venezuelan had saved in silver instead of bolivars, the purchasing power of that silver would have easily translated into this thing, and they would never have suffered the dramatic purchasing power loss that they had they simply saved in silver. This is the lessons that you need to start looking at right now.
Well, you saw the price of a house in '62, average house, $12,500 and some change. So what I did, I figured the value of the average price of a house today in the United States is $250,000. So I took $12,550 and I divided it by $250,000 to get the percent. And you can see there that it's 5%. In other words, the house in 1962, the average house, it was 5% of the price of the house today in 2008. That's within my lifetime. And you can go anywhere on the internet and people will tell you that the value of the dollar, the Federal Reserve note, in other words, this today it's worth $3. It only buys $3 worth, whereas back in 1962, let's say, to pick a year, it was worth. Actually, no, I'm wrong. Go all the way back to 1913. 1913, $100 would buy $100 worth of value, $100 worth of goods. Today, $3. That's how much our Federal Reserve note has depreciated. See, in Venezuela, it happened short period of time. What the Esau Edomites are doing over a longer period of time, over 100 years now, they slowly inflated the currency. That means they printed more currency, they put more currency, so more fiat currency is trying to purchase the same amount of goods. And the price of the goods in the value of the Federal Reserve note is going up and up and up and up and up and up and up. And now the rest of the world is rejecting this. They don't want any more of these because they know that the Federal Reserve can just print as much money as they want, which is what they're doing in Venezuela. Alrighty? I hope I made myself clear there. When the Romans and the Greeks wanted to debase their currency, in other words, make it worth less, they would just mint these in smaller quantities per unit. In other words, it might start out at 3.5 or 3.9 grams, then it would drop to 3.7 and then 3.5, etc. So they would debase the currency. That's how they did it. That's how they debased the currency back in the time of the Romans and the Greeks a couple thousand years ago. Today, they just print more of it. That's all they do. That's the difference. That's why it was so important to have the money in the United States as silver. And I have some coins here from 1962. And these are 90% silver. There's a $50 there, the quarter, and the dime, which was all silver, and then the nickel, which was real nickel, and the penny, which was real copper. I'm old enough. I used to carry this money around in my pocket. And So what they did is in 1933, I don't want to go on all the history, they took away all the gold from the people that were foolish enough to give it to the government. And then, well, they bought it from them, and then they devalued it immediately thereafter. But so what they did here in the United States is in 1964, I believe it was, they took the silver coins, the 90% silver coins out of circulation, and they replaced it with what we have today. So they debased our coins by taking silver completely out, 100% completely off the silver monetary system. Our currency, you could go into the bank and you could say, hey, I have a silver certificate here and I want to trade it in for some silver. And I did that. My father used to take me into the bank because my uncle used to give me money when I go over his house. He'd give me $1. A young kid, Daddy would take me to the bank and we'd get silver for it. I remember that. Okay, the counter was like, I was that high to the counter. So in my lifetime, we've debased the currency to where now it's only worth 3 of these when it used to be worth this much. Okay, I hope I'm making this clear here. So they've completely debased our currency, and now they can print as much as they want. And Nixon, I got to put this in there. Nixon took us off the international gold standard in 1971 because we were printing money that the other countries, France, especially Germany, were saying, hey, we want to trade all this pile of $100 bills here. We want to get real money. And Nixon said, nope, we're not doing that anymore. So since 1971, how many years is that? We've been off the gold standard internationally. And the point is, all the currencies now, all the currencies in the world are fiat. They're all printed as much as they want, and that's why, as the young man said, we're having to work and work and work and work to buy a house that's now worth the price is $250,000, whereas back in my parents' day, you could buy the same house for $12,500. You were making $5,500 a year, so 2 years you could buy a house. Can't do that anymore, can you, folks? So here we are today, 2018. Like I said earlier, federal minimum hourly wage is about $10. The McDonald's employees are demanding a living wage of about $15 per hour. And just as an aside, when my first job, I made $1.65 an hour, but I was able to buy gas at about 29 cents a gallon, and that was premium. And so we can see how much our currency has been devalued. And so let's just look at the value of silver, which is the whole point of this video. At $10 an hour, and I'm going to use a 10-hour workday because I'm sure those laborers back there work 10 hours. And as another aside, it was the Germans in the 1930s that implemented the 8-hour working day. But I'm going to use 10 hours because it's easy to multiply. And so we got today a worker works 10 hours minimum wage. He makes $100 per day. Now, if he was working back at the time of Christ in the Roman pay scale, that would be 1/10 of a troy ounce. He would get paid 1/10 of a troy ounce of silver, like we mentioned up here. 1 denarius was the daily wage for an unskilled worker and a common soldier. So today we would pay in 2008 1 troy ounce, 1 day's wage is equivalent of 10 times 100 a day's wages, or the price of silver should be, if it's the same parity as it was 2,000 years ago, the price of silver the value of silver should be $1,000 per ounce. With a $15 an hour wage, 1 troy ounce of silver, if tied to the Roman value, would be $1,500 U.S. notes. And then again, what is the price of silver in 2018? about $15 per ounce, or 1% of the value of silver, or what the street value of silver was 2,000 years ago. So what's going to happen here, folks? You can see that all of these promises to pay, this is an IOU, this is a note. This is a Federal Reserve note, and a note is an IOU. Somebody owes you, when you're holding this, somebody owes you a real tangible asset. But you're holding on to this thinking this is money. This is not money. This is fiat currency. I've had arguments with people that think they know what money is. This is not money. This is fiat currency. This is money. The word silver, kesef, in the Bible, Genesis chapter 12, verse 2, for example, Abraham was very, I forget exactly the wording, but he had cattle, silver, and gold. Cattle, silver, and gold. And silver is the same word used as money in Scripture. This and gold is real money. This is a promise to pay. So we've been trading our labor, our time, we've been giving up our life, our efforts for a paper promise to pay you something in the future. And meanwhile, the Esau Edomites, they get their cut when their interest payments. Well, a house it used to be, how much interest was there on a house of cost $12,550, as opposed to the interest that you pay on a house that you pay $250,000 for, or $400,000 for. See, the Esau Edomites, and we've let them do this for 100 years, folks, and especially since 1964, 65, when prices were pretty reasonable then. We've allowed them to take over and control our money system, and it's coming to an end. All fiat currencies collapse. I'm going to say that again. Every single fiat currency in the history of the world goes to zero, because that's their real value. And folks, we're getting awful damn close. Don't you think? Venezuela is telling us what's coming here to the United States. So what do you think you're going to want to hold when what's happening in Venezuela happens here in the United States? You're going to want to hold these, and you're going to have a whole stack of these in order to buy anything, and the average worker can't put his hands on that much money. Or would you rather have real money? Now, there's one fellow out there in the Israelite identity community that, because he thinks he knows a little bit of Greek, thinks he knows everything about everything. And him and I had a falling out over this very issue here. I remind you that Abraham, I'm going to go look at that verse real quick, refresh my memory. Yeah, it's in Genesis chapter 13, not chapter 12, I said previously. And Abram was very rich in cattle, in silver, and gold. Now, contrast that what we're being told today by some of these other Israelite identity, that's doesn't matter. You don't need to have any of it. And I don't remember all that they said. I just didn't agree with them. So some of you people are saying, oh, I can't eat silver. I can't eat silver. What do I want to do with a bunch of metal? It's worthless. Never mind that my mouth is full of gold, but hey, never mind about that. There's other use. There's more industrial uses today for silver than ever before. And you're asking, you're thinking, well, how come the price of silver is so cheap? Well, they're able to sell and buy silver on the Chicago Commodities Exchange, and they're able to use paper. They're able to manipulate the price of silver, because they sell contracts on the COMEX. And they've been suppressed. Every time the price of silver and gold start to move up, they hammer it. They sell puts, and they go, or they sell and buy puts and suppress the price of silver and keep it down, and on the COMEX. And all the silver, especially here in the United States, is based on the spot price that you find on the COMEX. So that's why the price of silver is being kept about $15 for one of these today. If this, like I said, I showed you, if this was priced according to the silver and gold, or the price of silver in the times of the Romans, this would be 1,500, or 15 of these. 15 of these right now. It should take 15 of these to buy 1 ounce of silver. That's not the case right now. But what would happen? What would happen if the manipulation on the COMEX was removed and people realize that this is worthless and it's going to go to its value, which is zero, and they look around and they say, well, what else am I going to put my earnings into? How am I going to hold my wealth? And they're going to look at silver and gold, folks. Now, some of you are saying, hey, I can't eat silver. What am I going to do with a bunch of silver? Well, I tell you what, let's just say I'm a farmer. Let's say I got my hands, I know how to get my hands on food. I have a farm, and I have a basket here of corn and apple and oranges and a plum and a tomato and an avocado, etc., beans, or I have food. And you come to me and you say, hey, I'm hungry. I'd like to buy some of your food, and I have paper currency. And you say, well, you're going to need a little more than that to buy what I got. You're going to need a stack. You're going to need a stack of currency to buy my chicken. Now remember, you're the farmer, and you've got a choice now. And somebody else comes up and says, hey, I'm hungry, and I'll give you a 50-cent, 90% silver for that basket of food there. Which one are you going to accept? You're going to accept a big stack of paper money, which is becoming more worthless, or becoming worth less more and more every day, or are you going to accept the silver, or the copper, or the nickel, which is increasing in value every day? I think the answer to that question is obvious. So, if there's, like I said, there's some Israelite identity teachers out there that are poo-pooing the value of silver and gold in your in your portfolio, shall we say? And I would suggest that if us Israelite identity, what would happen if all of us Israelite identity, the Israelite identity community, liquidated their Federal Reserve notes and their assets, their 401k plans? I can guarantee you that with the 95% drop in one day, whatever pensions those people had in Venezuela wiped out. That's close to 100%, folks. That's why they're having such a hard time over there. Their fiat currency has failed, and they remember they were the richest country in South America, and now look at them. They're eating animals out of the zoo, etc., folks. And like the young man said, oh, this is America. We're exceptional. That's not going to happen here. They won't let that happen here. Well, guess what? It's an economic law. They're going to have no control over it. They've been holding the beach ball under the water for years and years and years. And when that ball shoots up, defies gravity, the value of real money is going to come shooting back almost overnight, is my guess. And what would happen if the Israelite identity community had most of their wealth in real money? Silver and gold and cattle, if you can get cattle. What would happen? We would be in a much better position than we're in right now. Wouldn't you agree? Think about what we could do as a group with real money, real tangible wealth when this all plays out. I want to thank you for watching. Thank you for supporting this channel. May the grace of God, our Father Yahweh, may His grace be upon us all, for we most certainly need it. See you.
Do you think gold is money?
No.
It's not money. Even if it had been money for 6,000 years, somebody reversed that and eliminated that economic law.
Well, it's an asset. I mean, it's the same. Would you say Treasury bills are money? I don't think they're money either, but they're a financial asset.
Why do central banks hold it?
Well, it's a form of reserves.
Why don't they hold diamonds?
Well, it's tradition, long-term tradition.
Some people still think it's money. I yield back. My time is up. Thank you.